It's better than I expected because I'm getting a little bit scared from Brooks these days because the prices are high, but the performance is just not there. So a couple runs done and dusted in this shoe. Now this is the Brooks Hyperion 3 and these are my first impressions. But before we get into it, and if you guys haven't done so already and you want to support their channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And in the spec, so this one is a neutral road running shoe marketed in that up-tempo training category. Now you're going to be able to pick it up in Australia for $260 or only $140 in the US. Now in the weight, not a bad weight here, only 240 grams or 8.5 ounces. Now that's my size, a US 8.5. And in the stack, so we've got 36 in the rear, 28 in the front, and that's going to give us a 8mm drop. And in the upper, so the material that they're using here is a engineered mesh, double layer though, so it is quite thick, but the breathability isn't bad through the toe box and the mesh parts on the shoe. However, it does get a little bit warm where it's not mesh, so especially here up through the tongue and around the back of the shoe where it's quite built up. Solid heel counter at the back, rock solid there. Surprisingly, a plush amount of padding around the heel collar here, especially for a training shoe that is quite light. Now, with the tongue, interesting design. So I love the design of it. I love the concept. It reminds me of a stretch knit tongue, but it's not a stretch knit tongue. It's just a gusseted tongue that it's got like a lot of stretchy properties. But the tongue itself, it's got lots of padding on it, so it is comfortable, but it's not meshed. So it does feel like it hugs your foot down maybe a little bit too much on the shoe, and it does make you feel that your foot is a little bit constricted in the shoe, or a little bit suffocated for me. That's how I feel, and it sort of makes the foot warm, like a little bit too warm as well. But it's got a cool pull tab on it, but I do love the design. Just think the material could be a little bit better. Now with our lacing system, reinforced eyelets down either side, and surprisingly they are using these big, thick, plush, puffy laces. So again, that's a little bit confusing to me why they would use such plush laces in a light up-tempo training shoe. But we move on. No issues though with the laces coming undone. As I mentioned before, the lockdown is excellent, maybe too good because you are just sucked down on the shoe. In the fit, true to size in the length. I'm going to say though, in the width, it's probably on the narrow side, but the big issue with the fit of this shoe is just how low the volume is in the toe box. So super low. Actually, it just makes you feel like in general the shoe has just got such low volume with the toe box and the effect that this tongue plays on top of the shoe. Yes, it does create a crazy, awesome, great lockdown, but I think it's just a little too much for me. Build quality, absolutely excellent, and I think this shoe looks amazing. And in the outsole, so 3 distinct segments here of their road tack rubber. So you can see the majority of the forefoot and a couple of spots in the high wear areas in the rear. Now they have got some cutouts through this rubber just to bring the weight down of the shoe and not restrict the midsole so much, so quite like that. But I will say that this rubber is quite thick, so it's obviously going to boost the durability of the shoe. Now performance wise, in the grip department, I've only run this shoe in the dry condition, so I can't report on the wet, but when I do, I will surely report on that. And in the midsole, so the foam they're using here is their nitrogen infused DNA Flash. Now they have used this Flash too in other models, but I must say I think it's been tweaked because it does feel softer to the touch. No plate or anything in it, so flexibility wise, it's got a good amount of flexibility to it, quite like that, and it's got some good snapback to it as well. Now, what is interesting when I do the twist test though, it's quite solid, and that certainly does translate into the ride. And with the geometry, yes, we certainly have a 4-foot rocker here. I'm going to say it's on the earlier stage of rockers out there. It's not super aggressive, but you can certainly feel this one on the run, and it plays a big effect of how this shoe rides. And in the ride, well, the first word that is coming to mind here is smooth. Now, I don't think that is down to the foam though. I think it's all down to the geometry. So I really enjoy the shape of this shoe. It really does promote a really smooth foot strike. With the foam though, I'm not going to say it's soft and it's not overly firm. It's probably somewhere in the middle. I would classify it as probably more on the responsive side. The more you put into the foam, the more you get out of it. So even though this shoe I think is quite versatile, so it feels quite nice to jog in, but when I have picked up the pace in the shoe, it does come alive a little bit. So you get more sink into it, but you get more pop back out of it. So yeah, overall on the responsive side, super smooth, very comfortable, encourages a nice quick turnover, but happy to cruise as well. The majority of the bounce through the shoe is probably through the heel and through the midfoot. There's not much coming out of the forefoot there because you can just see it just drops away so quickly. And the big surprise is what I mentioned before when I done the twist test is just how stable the shoe is. So even though it's quite flexible and you feel quite natural running in the shoe, so really easy to turn the legs over, stability was very impressive here. What I'm liking in the shoe so far is certainly number one, the look of the shoe. I think it looks absolutely amazing. I love the build quality. Brooks is always excellent. I do really enjoy the geometry and the smooth ride that it delivers. And what I'm still figuring out here is just the choice of materials that they've used in this shoe, especially for an up-tempo shoe. Now, I did say this in the big brother shoe of this, the Hyperion Max 3, which I'm still testing now. Again, the choice of materials in that shoe really confused me. Again, it's the same here. So these big plush puffy laces, confusing in an up-tempo shoe, but obviously they're an easy fix. You can rip them out and put your own ones in. But again, the materials that they use in the tongue, it's a great design, an amazing design, but just the big, thick pads on the tongue, the material that it's made out of, it just, yeah, it really feels like the foot is getting suffocated and it just heats the foot up. You got all these breathability zones around the shoe, but it certainly just killed off with how they've, or just the materials that they've used on the tongue. And dislikes in the shoe, certainly the low volume in the toe box. We need a little bit more room here. And also the pricing in Australia in comparison to the US especially. So this shoe, Australian price $260. In the US it only retails for $140. So in the US this is the same price as the Puma Velocity 4. However, in Australia the Velocity 4 is only $180 and this shoe is $260. So yeah, not happy with that big price mismatch here from Brooks. And just wrapping up my first impressions here, so I think we've still got a pretty versatile shoe going on here. I'm not too sure if you were a fan of the previous two models that you're going to be too impressed with this one, because it is a fair bit of a different ride, especially with the upper. But it does sort of mirror what's going on with the Hyperion Max 3. But on the Hyperion Max 3, I think this shoe at that much cheaper price point is a much better option. So I think the ride is much more enjoyable in this shoe. Much lighter package, not so bottom heavy. This one's much more well balanced. I'd be happy to take this shoe out on a long run. I think it'd be amazing with the geometry and the foam, but I'm just not game enough to do that because of the low volume in the toe box and just how much this tongue sort of hugs you down. So I feel a bit suffocated, so I wouldn't want to be doing that out in my long run, but it's got potential. Maybe if I half-sized up, it might be an option for that, but I shouldn't have to do that because the length is just right. But yeah, overall, pretty good signs here. I do think it sort of sits in that category where, you know, the Evo SL category, Velocity 4 category, Rebel 4 category, but all those shoes are at a much cheaper price point, and I think that's where this shoe would be, because at that price point, it'd be a banger. But anyway, guys, really, those are my first impressions. Lots of testing to go. Enjoying my experience here. It's better than I expected because I'm getting a little bit scared from Brooks these days because the prices are high, but the performance is just not there. But this one, it's just giving me a little bit of hope for the brand again. But anyway, guys, that's it from me. Any questions you've got regarding this shoe, how it relates to anything else, hit me up in the comments. Thanks for watching. Make sure you give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.